Hi folks, here I am again. Let's talk a little bit about strategic writing because that's the first area that we're going to explore in this course, and I want to get you off on the right foot so you kind of know my thinking behind some of these things. I want us to be all on the same page about the foundational concepts of public relations writing. I have notes this time. So let's see what we're going to be working on in this area: the coworker memo, which is a solo assignment; the civility memo, which is a team assignment. You'll have a quiz, and then you'll have the team member evaluation. Use the learning outcomes and study guide to help you stay on track in this topic area and all the topic areas for the course. It's really important to follow that so that you stay on track. And also that Excel spreadsheet that has the chapter readings on it and the list of additional materials from Canvas, because you're going to want to make sure you stay on top of all of that, because the chapter readings are not listed in Canvas per se. They are in that Excel spreadsheet. Okay, so strategy in a nutshell. Here's what strategy is all about. I'm making strategy even as we talk. PR writers have to put a lot of thought into their work. We can't just sit down and start typing and expect it's going to turn out good. One would think we would not sit down and just start shooting a video and it would turn out good. But hey, this is not a video class, it's a PR writing class. So you really have to put a lot of thought into your work when you are communicating to a broad audience, so that you make sure that you're saying the right things in the right way. And that goes back to the art and craft thing again. The art is what you're saying or writing, the message you're communicating. The craft is the structure in which that message is being communicated. So for example, if you're writing a memo, the memo structure has to work for the message you're communicating through the memo. And that's what we're doing this first week. Both of these assignments are memos, so you need to spend some time with the readings about memos, how memos are structured and what they do. A couple of things just real quickly, right off the top of my head. A memo does not say, "Dear so-and-so." That's a salutation. It goes in a letter. It doesn't go in a memo. So don't say, "Dear so-and-so," when you start the memo. Another important thing is at the end of the memo. The memo has to have a call for action. The memo has to tell the recipient what you want them to do. If the person who gets the memo reads it and it doesn't have a call to action at the end, it just ends, the person reading it goes, "What do you want?" "I don't know." And they set it aside and you never hear from them again. And then you, as the sender of the memo, you're going, "What the hey? I sent these people a memo. They didn't come back to me." Well, if they didn't come back to you, it's probably because you didn't ask them to. That's the call to action at the end. It's very important. It's addressed in our readings. But before you even sit down and start working on this memo, you've got to think about the organization that you are writing for. You're writing this memo on behalf of an organization. What does that organization want to say? What does its values and decision making say about it? Who are you writing this memo to? The person, the audience, the public. Who is it you're addressing this memo to, and what do you want them to do? And will you clearly explain that? The technological means of disseminating this memo, is it going to be on paper? Is it going to be by email? That's important. That factors into all this. The legal environment, the ethical environment. And we'll talk a lot more about law and ethics later on, but you need to kind of put all of this into your thinking as you create the plan for this memo. Don't just sit down and start banging it out, because the planning is really important. Without strategic planning, it's like driving a car with no instrument panel. Now, back when I was in high school, I used to work on cars a lot. I went to auto shop and I was always tinkering on cars. I rebuilt a car at one time. And I've driven a car without an instrument panel in it, and it's scary because you don't know how fast you're going, you don't know how much gas you have, you don't know whether or not the engine's going to overheat, you don't know nothing. Driving a car without an instrument panel is scary. Writing public relations copy without a strategic plan is equally scary. You don't know where you're going, you don't know where you've been, You don't know nothing. You're just banging it out and hoping it'll work. And we want to avoid that in this class. We want to avoid that driving blind kind of thing. And it's especially important when you're working on a team that everybody on the team knows what's going on. That communication is like the instrument panel for the whole team. The civility memo you're going to be doing, it's a team-based project. You and the other members of your team need to be talking, you need to be sharing, you need to be creating this assignment collaboratively. You need to be looking at the final copy and doing a very close edit and proofreading of it. Let me tell you something that's a common problem in this class. Teams get together and do assignments, and they'll say, let's say there's 5 of them on the team. They'll go, okay, we're just going to have one person do this. The other 4 of us are going to rest this week while the one person carries the assignment for all of us. Don't do that. Don't do that. It doesn't turn out well, because the one person who does the work, well, aside from the fact that the team isn't really collaborating on this, the one person who does the work, you can't proofread or edit your own work effectively. You just can't. You need somebody else to look at it. So when one person does the team assignment and the other 4 just coast, then the assignment gets turned in and I find all kinds of mistakes in it that you didn't see because your team didn't proofread them. And I can tell when there hasn't been collaboration on a team assignment. So collaboration is really important. Get everybody involved, get everybody looking at it. Is there going to be some disagreements about how things ought to go? Sure. There's always disagreements when you get creative people together. But that's something else I want you to work on in this class. How do you mitigate those disagreements? How do you come together and discuss in an online environment what the right path forward is and how to take it? That interpersonal communication is really important. You got to master it. And this is a really good place to master it, because when you get to your capstone course, you will be working in a team. And you will have to make decisions collectively, or your client campaign will die. And so it's good to really get a handle on that, get practice on that here. So we want to have strategy that's not just one person's strategy, it's everybody's strategy. You've talked about it and worked it out. As you go through all the assignments in this class, I want you to know that it's important to talk to each other about the work. I'm probably the only faculty member who's going to encourage you to look at other students' work. I mean, like the individual assignments, look at other people's work. It's absolutely okay to view each other's work as long as you don't submit a copy, you don't submit an assignment that's a copy of somebody else's work. And there's no reason that you should do that in public relations, because there's a million ways to express ideas. But look at other people's work and get an idea what they're doing and help them proofread and edit, and they'll help you. And that's how PR writers get better. They look at the writing of other people and they learn from it. And so I encourage that in this class, as long as there's not copying. And the syllabus has the definitive statement on that. So as we think about the strategy of public relations writing, here's some questions. What's happening in this situation that I need to communicate about? What kind of organization is involved here? How is it structured? Who are the publics involved? What do they know? What do they not know? What do I want people to know? What do I want people to not know? What do people need to know, and what do they want to know? Those are 2 very different things. What people need to know and what people want to know. I'll add another one in the current political climate that we're in. What do people believe? What do they want to believe? What is actually true? Those are 3 different things. What people believe, what they want to believe, and what is actually true. We see a lot of communication out there in the media environment of what people believe and what they want to believe and what is actually true. This is true. Membership in the Flat Earth Society is growing. There are many more members now in the Flat Earth Society than they've ever been before. The Flat Earth Society says we're living on a flat plane, not on a globe. I'll leave it there. Do we know that the message you're communicating, back to strategy, Do you know that the message you're communicating is being received well or will be received well? What does research tell you about that? What type of communication tool are you using here, and what does that tool normally look like? How does that structure of the tool integrate with the message that you're trying to disseminate? There's that art and craft thing again. Art is the words and craft is the structure of the tool you're using. They've got to integrate, they've got to work together. And have you looked at lots of samples to know what this ought to look like? I teach this class a lot. I get emails from people all the time in this class, and they'll say, could you show me a sample of a news release so I know what a news release looks like? And my response to that is, have you looked at our book? There's samples in there. Have you gone on the internet? Surprisingly enough, there's lots of news releases on the internet, and you can critique them as to whether or not they're good or bad and what they ought to look like. We live in an internet age. There's nothing hidden from you in terms of the different types of PR tools that are available. Get out there and look around. It's all out there. A big part of the strategic plan on any communications task is editing and proofreading, which I've already talked about. So please don't short circuit that. Note that the 9-step writing process is called for in our first individual assignment, the coworker memo. I ask you to frame that around the 9-step writing process that's in the book, and there's a reason for that. It's because I want you to remember that 9-step process. It is not uncommon for students in this class to write that coworker memo, and they talk all about the step-by-step writing process, and they tell Pat all about it, and they do a nice memo, and then the student, they go on to the other assignments later in the class, and they forget all about the 9-step writing process. They just sit down and start banging stuff out. And it's like, whoa, wait. Back to topic 1. Remember the steps. You got to use the steps. That's why we mention the steps. You need to use them. So don't forget those steps as you move forward. Keep in mind also that details matter. They matter so much. Even one little misspelling or one little typo is unacceptable to me in public relations writing. It's unacceptable. Do they happen? Yeah, they do. Might you find a typo in my syllabus? I suppose you might. I try very carefully so that you won't, but maybe you will. That doesn't excuse the idea of typos. They're just not acceptable. Spelling errors, punctuation errors, grammar errors, not acceptable. And so I don't expect perfection, but I expect us all to work toward being as error-free as we can possibly be. So, review the topic 1 content area. Make sure you understand how we're moving forward in this class. If there's anything you do not understand, please communicate with me. I want to have a dialogue with you guys through announcements, through discussion, whatever, so that we can talk these issues out and you can be as clear as possible on what public relations writing is and how it's going to impact your career moving forward. One last thing to remember, writing is the #1 skill employers look for. Writing is the #1 skill PR employers look for. You've got to be a good writer. If you're not a good writer, you won't have a future in this discipline, and that's a fact. So, that said, I am here to help you over the next 15, 16 weeks. I am here to help you become the best writer you can possibly be. So, let me know how I can help. Thanks a lot.